Good evening and welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. It's Don Anderson, and it looks like Don Anderson, but it's actually Leslie. I bet you can't tell the difference. And if you can't, you are truly blind. I'm
I
talking
know.
Stevie Wonder blind.
This is how we roll. We're fast, 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 fast. I don't even type in my name. I just
Yeah.
like in from Costco and like step down and let's go, brother.
There you go. We're in it to win it. So we were just talking. We only had about 30 seconds of pre-show prep tonight, but it's really easy to prepare when one of those lives in California and the other one lives in Oregon. So you both need to argue about, or Washington actually, but which of the three worst states of the United States. This is really easy, really easy. So I thought I'd start off this thing with just a quick blurb about Portland. Why Portland, or as we call it here, P-Town? Because there's always some disaster you can talk about in P-Town, right? So here's the quick and dirty on P-Town. Let's see what happened to my. Come on, don't do me dirty now. Canceled late draft, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Portland. So Portland resides in Multnomah County. So that's the first thing you have to recognize. And the surrounding counties are like Washington County, Clark County. So when we talk about Portland, we're really talking about Multnomah County because sanity lives in the other counties. So it's unfortunate that one county can dominate an entire state. I mean, California is a much bigger state, and you've got like three or four cities with four or five major counties. San Francisco County, San Diego County, LA County, San Bernardino County. Right? So you can name the counties that are train wrecks down there. Here is just one, and that one is really bad. So they have a $104 million shortfall in their homeless services. Like, yeah, okay, get this straight. It's not that the whole budget's 104 million for homeless. They have a $104 million shortfall in one county. So they got their hat in hand going to the other counties that are run by sane people, by the way, right? So when you go to those counties, you don't see tents everywhere. You don't see drugs and needles. And when you call the police, they actually show up 911 and you're on the phone in 30 seconds. All those things that are supposed to happen in regular cities are happening in the counties around Multnomah County. Multnomah County is a true disaster. So why the shortfall, you ask? Well, it might have to do with the fact that there's no businesses in downtown anymore. All the productive citizens have left. And so now they want to raise more money to take care of the homeless. And so that's what's going on in Portland. Of course, the other counties said like no. Then none of them said H no. But let's just say a number of them responded like they got the request and like 5 minutes later they responded without having a meeting or anything. So I just thought it was hilarious. And then just a couple other things about Portland. So Targets, CVS, all the major like retail stores are closing. This one podcaster said he went to go travel from someplace else to downtown Portland, and he found that four-star hotels in downtown Portland were all less than $100 a night. Can you imagine a 4 or 5 star hotel in the downtown of a major city and it's less than $100 a night? We're talking Motel 6 money, right? Because nobody wants to go down there. The largest commercial real estate vacancy rate in the United States is Portland. Second highest crime rate of any city in the United States. Second only to Memphis. And this is the thing that's a crack up. This is the whitest city in the United States, right? So it ain't the usual suspects here. That's how bad off Portland is. So I will stop there and allow you to give me your comment and segue to whatever California fund we have. We can't even blame Portland on being Californicated, right? You can't even. They usually blame Californians.
Well, of course, you can blame California for all sorts of things because what happens there rolls across the rest of the country. But I that I just wanted to say that I'll see your 104 million on homeless, raise you 24 billion for California.
I stand corrected. B
Now,
with a B, 24 billion.
so all right, maybe we could carve it up, but $24 billion lost, unaccounted for. I know we've talked about this before, this California audit that just came up like a big stinky pile of you know what. But, here, you've got Newsom hiring a New York PR agency to sell California to the rest of the country in advance of his, supposed presidential bid. And let me just remind you that, we have 32, the audit showed that we had $32 billion in unemployment checks that were lost during COVID, no accounting for it. 24 billion on homeless on that nobody can account for all of California with a B. 18 billion on the high-speed rail that still doesn't work. We have massive payment errors in food assistance account 2.5 billion that we know of, right? They're going to be doing, some major audits, right? We've got JD coming in to save the day with his little red cape. And then we have 650 million in that was spent on a new 911 system that doesn't work.
That doesn't work. You, my grandfather was a Southern Baptist preacher, and one thing you can say about us is we're never speechless. I'm speechless. They silenced the grandson of a Baptist preacher. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do.
Well, no, I mean, I'm so grateful that all of this is being revealed, that we have people like Nick Shirley, who is, what is he, like 20, 21? You need some kid who's, with a phone, with an iPhone, and, a PT Cruiser or whatever he drives around in, from state to state, trying to, reveal all of this stuff. But, now that that's information is coming out, there is now actually a bill in the California Assembly where it's called the informally it's called the Silence Nick Shirley bill. And
wow, that's actually the title of the bill.
Well, it's not the official title, but okay. And they are, gosh, where is it? But basically, oh, here it is, AB 2624. I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that that it's Democrat sponsored. It is the informal name of the Stop Nick Shirley Act, and it imposes up to $10,000 in fines and even jail time for those who are found recording and sharing video evidence of this corruption. Empty facilities, ghost services, parking lots full of Lamborghinis and Porsches and, McLarens where hospices are supposed to be. So that's something that, and Newsom has actually publicly commented, and he's in favor of this bill. Of course, he's in favor of this bill.
It's a 100% full-on, unapologetic communist state. I mean, these are exactly the things that Lenin, Stalin, and Chairman Mao, Pol Pot, they all did this stuff. I mean, the destruction of the press and the replacement of the press with essentially a government press, which is precisely what the mass media is doing. I mean, how can a kid who's not even 21 years old, probably can't even buy a drink legally, right? And he's out here doing the job that corporate press can't seem to bring themselves to do, because they're basically Pravda and Izvestia. That's what they are. They're mouthpieces for the Democrat Party, which has become basically the red threat.
Right.
They're traitors to the rest of us.
So after the numbers that I just gave you, we and talking about Nick Shirley, Nick has come out and done all of these videos, and Xavier Bonta, who is our AG, right? Our last AG was Kamala Harris. Our AG is Xavier Bonta. And in order so that they don't have too much egg on their face, California has discovered that there is some actual corruption. I think they've identified 47 million. But let's just go back to the audit, shall we?
In any one of the things you mentioned previously would be enough for you to be out of office, and that's the end of your career. That train system thing is absolutely mind-blowing. I think they got 4 miles of track laid. I mean, for 47 billion or whatever it was.
I was listening to somebody and they were talking about a rocket that is being built, and I cannot remember its path, but there's some rocket that's being built that actually, all said and done, is anticipated to cost $24 billion. And it was the same amount that's been lost fell out of Newsom's pockets and whoever else,
Yeah. How you don't go to jail for these crimes? It's unspeakable.
They're not going to. And there's all sorts of people out there that are talking about how Newsom is just proving himself day after day after day to be to disqualify himself from the presidential race. But I mean, I heard, was it yesterday, a couple days ago, Kamala was out there talking at some event and receiving wild applause, and she dropped a little nugget out there that she might make her presidential bid. It's like, I, I mean, I guess they just they're like I don't know, like spoiled celebrities, who've got their people around them that just sort of keep telling them how amazing they are and how they can, every performance and every behavior is absolutely over the top amazing. That's kind of the egos of these people that just sort of think, oh, it's okay, we could do this stuff. No, no, there's no accountability.
No, it's 100% narcissism. You never hear them talk about the problems that the state faces and the strategies they're going to employ to fix them. Either the things that are done historically or the things that they're doing now. Because of course you can't, because number one, your strategies have failed. And number two, you don't care. It's 100% about them. And you look at their behavior, you see it, it's just nuts. It's so unserious. It's unserious.
Well, and they're like 2-year-olds throwing a tantrum in the grocery store when they can't have their favorite candy or Teddy Grahams or whatever it is. There's just no concept of any other reality other than the one where they run it. They get everything that they want, and everyone else be damned. We're gonna burn it down if I can't have what I want.
Yeah, I mean, historically in this country, for example, until the last like 20 years, 15 years, it's been understood that if you lose the election, then you have to go back to the auto shop, if you will, and tweak your car so you have a chance to win the next one. Not that you burn down the whole electorate because you didn't win. I mean, look at this for a minute. I'm just going to use Trump as the example here, and whoever he played, and the one who comes after Trump, they're going to do the same thing to him too. That's just how they roll. It's you're essentially calling all of the people who voted for him all of the names that you call him. That's what they're doing, and they don't seem to have any problem with it. They just don't care about the country. All they care about is having their way.
Yeah. Well, it's like Eric Swalwell, another California star that we've been talking about, who was really part of the strong voices against Trump, in the whole Russian and Chinese. I mean, he's just been railing against Trump with and any sort of suggestion that Trump has corrupt foreign engagements, right? And this is a guy literally in a relationship with a Chinese spy.
The thing that, and you read this over and over again, when you read the people who've studied, communists, the ability to look you straight in the eye and lie to your face is something that they possess, that it's like an otherworldly skill set that they have. So here's a guy who's knowingly been doing these things to all of these women, and they're still coming out of the woodwork, by the way. And he looked you straight in the camera and all this time talk about other people and say that person should step down because they had a hint of sexual harassment, or women are the number one thing in the world. They should we 100% believed all the time until he gets busted. And now all of a sudden it's a different tale. And they have no problem like doing that. A normal human being would be embarrassed, would feel out of place. They don't feel any of that. And the only reason that the party's even doing anything about it, and they wouldn't care. In fact, they'd have continued to support him if they hadn't this situation, having this weird California election where two Republicans might end up being in the lead. That's the only reason. If it wasn't for that, I think the guy'd still be in the hunt.
Well, I think that it also has to do with, they had this very influential Democrat who came out against him. One of her, Cheyenne, I can't remember if it's Holder or Hunt, but we talked about that a couple weeks ago, that one of her good friends came to her with this accusation. And it was only then that she took it seriously. And she started to then, field some other phone calls and meetings with other accusers. but it had to hit her at home in order for her to go, oh. And it was a known situation. People knew. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like by the time like you've already beat your animals, you've already abused, the neighbors, you've been a bully, right?
Mhm.
You don't do that stuff
Mhm.
without first having kind of some lead up. So the fact that he was, what, 13 years, I want to say was he 3 term or 4 term in Congress?
Mhm.
And
Everybody knew.
of course they knew.
Yeah.
Of course they knew. It's like saying, Kristi Noem, like, oh, nobody knew what was going on with Kristi Noem and her husband. Like, oh yeah, they knew. They knew.
Right?
You don't
There's
hide
no- yeah, you don't not know. Look at
that.
all the research that goes in the backgrounds before people go do stuff. It was a political calculus basically, and as long it reminds me of the Kamala Harris thing with Biden. Uh, until Biden went and completely blew it in that debate, they were going to press that guy to the finish line. They made the calculus that there's no way that guy's winning. We got to get him out of there, and then they made the move. Had he not had he not done that debate or even performed half, but they would have stayed behind him. And the same thing applies here. If it wasn't for this political situation where it is in California right now, they'd have left him alone. But the Democrats haven't figured out to get rid of the 18 other people who are running.
Mm,
And so now, and they still got a bunch of turds left to sort out.
yeah, they do.
It's not like one of them floats to the top. I mean, I can't remember the woman's name, who was, I guess, the next most likely one.
Katie Porter.
Oh my goodness, she is horrendous.
Well,
Uh,
I heard an ad for Tom Steyer,
uh,
um, and his commercial is, we're going to abolish ICE." I just thought, what?
well,
And that was on
okay,
Fox. That was
I
on
guess
Fox.
okay. Yeah, he's really bad too. I forgot about that. It's like, how do you put these candidates up? There's like no one. Is there anyone running with common sense? And maybe I haven't dug down beneath those two, right? But it's like, wow.
Xavier Bonta. He's the other guy.
Yeah, I don't know much about him.
Well, he's the AG of California,
That
and
tells me all I need to know.
behind a lot of all the transgender, bills, and just a lot of this. I mean, he's been looking aside, looking away when it comes to all the corruption, right? So, I mean, there's been whistleblowers that were threatened that they would lose their job and their tenure and their pension. He knew about that.
The thing with California, if there's even, this is just I don't know. I have no research to say this. I'm just guessing, strictly guessing. The population has been abused so badly by this one party there, that I suspect that if you had a Republican versus a Democrat, if it came down to one of the two leading Republicans and one of this stinking pile, and you had a modicum of a fair election, I think you'd have a shot at winning anyway. Because the state is just tanking. Hey, what is gas there now? I'm going to cringe when you say it. Don't tell me it's over 6.
Okay, I won't.
Okay, which means it is.
Yeah, last week I paid $6.59.
I can't even believe it. I can't.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this. I have a 10-gallon tank, so it's like, all right, not that big of a deal. I don't do major road trips, but yeah, I was like, not cool. And so then I went yesterday actually and filled up at Costco,
Mhm.
and it was 5. But when I was getting on the freeway today, the gas station right there at the intersection was 5.60, 5.70, something like that.
When I lived there, I remember thinking, again, this is like 30 something years ago when I first moved down there, and I knew people who lived in places like, not quite as far as San Bernardino, but like you get that way out East County, right? And they were commuting to work in the aerospace industry, which would have been around El Segundo. So you're looking at like a 70, 80 mile, one way trip, 150 miles a day. People were driving. And I thought to myself, and back then gas was a little over $1 a gallon or something, right? I was thinking, man, if this gas thing ever goes berserk, this is going to just crush this place. Because you got people driving, 150, 200 miles a day for work. I had to believe some of that's still going on for the few people that still work there. Can you imagine what your gas bill would be now if you're driving even 100 miles a day, which is in California, that's like nothing.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of people that live in a town called Temecula, which
I know
is,
Temecula. Yeah.
and they'll either drive into, Miramar or Sorrento Valley area. I mean,
Mhm,
that's, probably 40, 50 miles, 50
mhm,
miles away. Um, Maybe they'll drive up to Orange County, Newport Beach, Irvine,
mhm.
north. But yeah, I mean, and I'll bet you a lot of them are getting new cars, or talking to their boss and saying, I simply cannot afford to be here anymore. But
If you just did the quick and dirty math on that, so $500, 500 miles a week, not even counting, this is just work miles, no other miles, right? That's 2,000 miles a month. And if your car got 20 miles a gallon, you took it 200 gallons. I'm just quickly 200 gallons times $6 a gallon. That's 1,200 bucks.
after that, yeah, you're looking around going, where is that kind of car come out of my, what am I not buying? Am I not paying for my kids' private school tuition? Am I not buying medicine? Am I not going on a vacation?
We're talking about whether you eat or not at some point.
Absolutely.
I mean that, and I haven't talked about car repair, maintenance, or any of that stuff. And we know what the cost of a new car is, because California's lowered all these regulations and everything. I mean, it's like the state's out to absolutely throttle the middle class.
Yeah.
You
But
can't have middle class.
of course they are. But did you see? I mean, I'm sure you did. We could talk a little bit about the Strait of Hormuz and what's going on there. Um,
Good times. So what we in? I've not followed it closely for the last few days, but let me just see if I can recall. So we have a blockade, right? Is that what's going on now?
yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
so one of the big things was that they, it's been push, 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 open, 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 and then
Mhm.
and Iran was like, well, no, if you drive through the strait, we're going to bomb you, and they laid all the mines, right, all the
Mhm.
and then, oh shoot, we don't know where
Mhm.
all, we don't remember where we put all the mines, and
Of course
all
they don't.
the rivers are bottom of the ocean, so we can't go get them. Okay, so then there was that problem, and then Trump was like, "All right," and then that, remember that was part of the 10-point proposal was that, all right, Iran's going to open the strait, but then they're going to charge a toll on any ship that goes through,
Mhm.
and it was, and it was like whatever. And now it's no, 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 we're not letting you do that. In fact, we're shutting the strait, except we're letting in certain, or letting through certain ships, um or you can come to America and you can buy our oil. And so, now ships are streaming to America to buy our oil.
It's this is asymmetrical 3D, 5D, 7-day chess being played out. And at some point, I think you just have to like watch the thing play out.
Yeah.
I know this is as much a war against China and Russia as it is against Iran. And the El Stupido press, they can't see anything complex, right? All
Yeah.
they see is like kill Trump. And this is like the fascinating part about this whole thing. Not to mention, it's a punch in the face to NATO and Europe and all of that too,
Of
because
course.
they stupidly relied on Russia, their enemy, to buy their energy products. Went green, shut down their own ability. So they stopped doing coal. If you're Great Britain, they stopped doing nuclear in France. They shut down all their nuclear in Germany, and wind and all of this crap. And so now they're completely, bottom line, they're completely at America's mercy. Okay, buy our stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so it's just,
let me just read you this, where it says, if Iran can't ship the oil, it piles up while its local oil storage tanks fill to the brims. In as few as 13 days, they'll have to stop pumping because there's nowhere left to store the oil. There's a bigger problem, but that's a bigger problem than it looks. When you stop pumping, wells don't just sit idling, they start dying.
yeah, it, it's pretty masterclass, you
So
know.
Yeah, forced shutdowns could permanently eliminate 300 to 500,000 barrels per day of production capacity, equivalent to 9 to 15 billion in annual revenue lost forever. 150 billion gone over the next 10 years if Iran doesn't make a deal in the next 2 weeks.
And maybe that's the best thing that comes out of it. If all those places are reliant on America for their energy products, I got no problem with that. And we should tariff the living daylights out of
Yeah.
them.
So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So Trump has been the US has been monitoring Karg Island, and anybody leaving Karg Island gets stopped. So 8 Iran-bound ships were blocked. 20 ships headed for other ports were safely transited the strait. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting chain of events. I don't know. Did you see that we also signed a defense deal with Indonesia?
I did see that. Indonesia historically just kind of played the middle. But they could see how this thing is lining up. And then Indonesia is like so strategically placed. These is one of those things where, see, most of us Americans we don't know that part of the world. We don't look at maps or whatever, but the whole world's really reliant on about 7 or 8 strategic straits, right? And the Malacca Straits might be the most important one. And Indonesia and the Philippines sits right on that. I mean, that was one of the reasons why Japan went to war against us, because they wanted control over that, right? These are the things that is in the very fine print in history books. But China is something like, I might have the numbers wrong, but you'll get the general idea. Something like 80% of their business flows through that strait. You control that strait, and it's like 50% of their energy comes through those straits. They don't have a domestic. They're not like the United States. They are the weakest. They're not a superpower. The press wants you to think they're just not.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be a superpower and be structured the way they're structured. When the big bad Soviet Union existed, it was a much bigger threat than China is now.
Well, yeah, it's kind of cool. And Indonesia, who does have a lot of oil, they actually can't provide for their own. They're not energy independent, so they still have to import. So, who's ready?
It all comes back, and this is the thing. We Americans, because the left has taught us to not be proud of our country. Just a couple of statistics. I did a little research on this. You realize that the United States represents, I think we're about 4% of the world's population, right? That's how small this country is in terms of population. We produce 26% of the world's GDP. I mean, get your head around that. 4% of the world, that's how productive American citizens are, because we have the best culture, the best economic system, the best constitution on the planet. Now, what I just said, people be mad at you. Oh, how dare you? You're being a supremacist. Yep, I am.
Yeah.
Look at the score. Look at the scoreboard. Right. Seahawks won the game. They won the Super Bowl. They had more points. America has the most points. Sorry. It's just somebody else come play ball with us. Nobody's in our league. We don't even have anybody in our league anymore. So why are we embarrassed about that? We need to start saying that.
I know.
It's not polite to brag, but like Muhammad Ali used to say, it ain't bragging if you can back it up.
That's right.
If the other guy's laying down on the mat, knocked out, I think you've got a pretty good case.
And so far, Trump's the only one saying it. I mean, like, why are people wanting to shut him up when he's so proud of our country? And he's such a, every opportunity he gets, he turns something around to a positive. And he goes on and brags about us and brags about what we're doing. And people go, shh, that's not polite. Don't say it.
No, we need to be very impolite. I love that about him. And see, we used to say those things back in the 50s, 60s, before the radical left took over all the teaching institutions and started lying about the country. This country is greater than any other civilization that's ever existed in history. I'll go that far, right?
Yeah.
No other country in history has the track record that's Great Britain, close, not close anymore, but was once upon a time. But a country that fought a civil war to end slavery. No other place on the planet has done that. Great Britain sent their ships to the high seas to stop it, and the United States did the same thing. Only two countries bothered to do that. So from a moral perspective, there's nothing close. You realize, I think I researched this, the Americans, the top, and this was the Fortune 200 top charities. The Americans gave $660 billion to those charities. That doesn't include the churches, which is probably more than that number. 660 billion, by the way, if that was a GDP number, would make the United States, would make our charitable giving, if it were a country, would be like the 80th biggest country on earth, right? That's just the giving. Whenever there's some disaster overseas, like they said in Ghostbusters, who you gonna call? What do you see? You see American ships, you see American shoulders, you see American Red Cross, you see Doctors and Borders who come from where? Come from here. It always comes from here. I don't see them coming from China. I don't see them coming from like Cambodia. I don't see them coming from any of these communist places, right? They always come from here because this is the best place on the planet. And which direction is immigration flow, by the way? Right. Well, they ain't leaving here unless we throw them out, which we need to help them leave more. But they come here. What was that old song? They come into America.
And
that song was legit.
Yeah. Did you hear about Ellen DeGeneres?
No, I have not.
She left the country in a hissy fit and moved to somewhere, Ireland, maybe. I'm not sure where she moved to. But anyway, she wants to come back. And so she's reapplied for citizenship and she was denied.
Awesome. Keep your butt out. You made your bed, sleep in it.
And all those cowards who threatened and didn't go. You know what?
Maybe go and stay out.
Pushing them out. Like, this is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
And really, this should happen for someone like her who publicly denounces her country. You said you don't love your country. You denounced your citizenship. Well, fine. Go be a citizen somewhere else. I think that's great you left. Now you shouldn't want it. You shouldn't. If you're going to come back, get in line then.
Right.
So you get in line and wait 10 years.
That's exactly what they said. Sorry. Turns out we have a lot of people that want to come here.
Yeah, make your case. So I think that's great. I wish the rest of them had the same circumstances.
Yeah.
Like what's this crazy actor? I love him as an actor, but the guy's atrocious in terms of. Is it Al Pacino?
Yeah, Al Pacino. Both of them.
A whole bunch of them. Yeah, it's like, please leave if you hate it so much.
Is it Al Pacino or De Niro?
It's De Niro, I think.
Is it? Okay, yeah.
I don't want to be that Pacino yet. Sorry, Al. But just please leave. Go where it's better, for you. If you like Islamabad better, then go to Baghdad, go to Iraq, go to Iran, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, anything that's stand, go there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sean Penn made a big stink about, he used to go down and socialize with Fidel all the time down in Cuba.
It's so the people who've gotten the best this country has to offer, the people who have, gotten living at the top of the thing, right? Like, Hanoi Jane Fonda, for example, is another one, right? Are the ones who do the most to desecrate the country. It's just, it's basically in her case, it's just treason.
Well, look at Dennis Rodman heading over to North Korea.
Oh, right, yeah. Move there, please. They never stay. It's because this whole thing at the bottom is all narcissistic. It's all attention seeking, virtue signaling. That's all this stuff is.
Well, and I would say that in the case of these celebrities, they are so removed from reality. They have there's nothing real that they're reading or seeing. It's like when somebody joins, the UN and they become an ambassador for peace or whatever it is they're not actually going and experiencing the real stuff.
No.
For the most part. I mean, they're over there seeing through a specific lens. It's like when when Russia and the USSR used to host, the Soviet Union would host, certain diplomats or whatever tour groups, and were watched wherever they went. There were cameras and, in their hotel rooms, and they had, you don't get to just get out and out. You don't see how things really are.
Well, I tell you, one of the craziest examples of this, and I think there's many people that you could say it's hard to hang a label on one of the worst human beings in history, right? But I think it was the New York Times had it was a famous journalist name was Durant. I think it was Durant, Will Durant. I think it was back in the 20s and 30s. And this guy was just loved communism, just loved the Soviet Union, right? This guy went there and visited it. He went to the Ukraine and saw what Stalin was doing to the Ukrainians. He saw the Holodomor. He saw them starving people to death in the streets and came back and reported how wonderful it was. I mean, there's got to be special flames in hell for this guy, right? And I believe, I'll have to double check this, that when he died, the Soviet Union died, they actually put a special marker in like the Kremlin wall or something for this guy, right? I mean, it's just, this is one of those forgotten history things, right? But there's your New York Times, and they have not changed since. They wanted communism to work so bad, they were willing to overlook this obvious stuff. Sam, you go back and look at Roosevelt administration and all of that stuff as well. They wanted it to work so bad. It's terrible to say this, but it's fortunate he died when he did, and Truman stepped in and took one look at it and said, nope. Right? You know, who, by the way, Truman's one of the most underrated. He might be the last great Democrat president, actually.
Well, you're going to have to give me a little a history lesson on that. But since we're talking about wacky, loony things like communism is good, I thought that I would deliver what I've promised for 2 weeks, which is a little bit of a discussion on the missing scientists.
Yes, because we've been talking about that. Go for it, girl.
Yeah. Okay. So was it Doocy? Peter Doocy was today in a press conference with Caroline Leavitt and asked her, there have been at least 10 deaths and mysterious disappearances of scientists and contractors with ties to U.S. nuclear and aerospace programs since 2024.
Wow.
And you know, are you aware? Is the United States government aware of this? And if so, what are you doing about it? Mm-hmm. And of course, she promised to look into it. So, you know, I mean, I think she's a good person. So hopefully, you know, they'll have some sort of response. But here's what he's talking about. You've got contractor Stephen Garcia, Kansas City National Security Campus's Albuquerque facility, which manufactures about 80% of all non-nuclear components used in the U.S. nuclear weapons. He had top-level security clearance and was last seen leaving his home in October 2025, wearing a green camouflage shirt and carrying a handgun. Wow. You've got retired Air Force Major General William Neal McCaslin walked out of his Albuquerque home in February 2026, leaving behind his phone, and took only a handgun, a .38 caliber revolver. He was in charge of the Air Force Research Lab at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, a base.
So a two-star general's missing?
Yeah, two-star general, wow. Major general. This is a base that's long rumored to house extraterrestrial debris from the Roswell crash, and he oversaw classified space weapons programs. We've got Anthony Chavez and Melissa Cassius, both New Mexico residents with ties to Los Alamos National Lab. They disappeared under near identical circumstances in 2025. They were last seen leaving their homes on foot without their wallets or their phones. A NASA scientist, Monica Jacinta Riza, disappeared while hiking in California in June 2025. 2 NASA JPL researchers died 2023 and 2024 under circumstances that were never publicly explained. No autopsies were performed.
Wow.
A nuclear fusion researcher was killed in his Boston home in December 2025 by a former classmate from Portugal, who later died by suicide.
Wow. That's all just in the last year or something, right? You said?
Yeah. Yeah, since 2024, but late 2024. So you've got that going on while at the same time, people are now teasing, well, maybe aliens are real. Maybe UFOs are real. And I don't think they are. I don't think there's extraterrestrials. There could be. There absolutely could be, but I don't think that they are. But I do think that there's a bunch of sketchy things going on. I know some people have said that it's actually, they believe that it's our technology that's out there that's doing all of these things. But it's so top secret that, of course, it's not part of any current weapon programs, or if it is, it's top secret and nobody knows about it, and none of the pilots are talking, or the drone operators, or whatever. But yeah, it's just a little, I mean, a couple years ago, I read a book called Chaos, written by the guy. I think we might have talked about it, but it was written by the guy who's a journalist, and he was asked to write a story for like the 20th anniversary of the Manson murders. And he, started digging into just the bizarre behavior of both the Manson himself, as well as Manson's cult followers, and all the people who were around him. Like, Manson was in prison. He'd grown up in foster care. He was abused terribly. He went to jail at an early age. His caseworker and was later tied to I think it was Army research, and he just started going down this rabbit hole into MK Ultra, and talking about all of the mind bending experiments that the government was doing, using psychedelics, and they were turning people into assassins, they were weaponizing people, and people had no recollection of what was happening. They would wake up covered in blood. In the case of one Air Force, he had only been in a couple years. He woke up and he was covered in blood, and he was framed. Might not necessarily. I mean, he was accused and convicted of murdering like a 10-year-old girl, and he had no recollection of doing it. But it was found in his records that he had participated in some psychiatry treatment at a facility where doctors and scientists who were known to be part of the MK Ultra program were on staff. So, I just don't know. I'm kind of at this point where I'll believe anything, because everything that we've been told seems to be crumbling,
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I'm trying to think how to respond to this. When people, because one of the things the press is trying to do is beat you up over things that they'll call conspiracy theories. But my philosophy of that, everything that we see around is a result of people conspire to do everything, right? So it's just a question of which conspiracy has the most credibility. So I no longer say, that's like stupid, that's impossible. Nope, it's worth considering. So you're never getting those words come out of my mouth. And talking to my children, who are now like late 20s, early 30s, and they're pretty much out there investigating stuff that you and I would consider sacrosanct. Like, they're like, well, did man really walk on the moon? I mean, they're out there like questioning that stuff, and it's like,
I know. I
have to say to them, I mean, I'd have told them they were crazy 10 years ago. Now I have to go, I'm not, maybe, right? And you look at the great books and movies, because there's a lot of overlap. Remember these great spy novelists, a lot of them had their careers in Secret Service stuff, or were in the military. It came out. So you got a lot of overlap. They'll ask them to imagine stuff coming, and to do war scenarios or whatever. So these things you see, like what you're just talking about, think about the Bourne Identity, for example, right? Jason Bourne was exactly what you're talking about. They were trying to recreate this like assassin thing, and it went sideways. You think about, here's another one. Remember the movie Boys from Brazil?
No.
So the Boys from Brazil, check that out. I'm sure some of the audience are probably a little older than you. Boys from Brazil, Laurence Olivier and Gregory Peck, two phenomenal actors, by the way.
Yeah.
The theory, you may have heard of the theory. So the theory went like this: before Hitler died, they got his DNA, and they went out and they went out and had raised kids exactly the way Hitler was raised, and they secretly raised them all over the world, right? And then they were going to wake them up at a certain time, and then they have these little Hitlers all over the world, right? And so his father was super abusive, his mother was really passive, so they did it exactly like that. And so the Boys from Brazil is the famous Nazi hunter from he just died not that long ago, but this guy was portraying as if he was the famous Nazi hunter from Israel who goes and researches this, and he finds, and Joseph Mengele, who's the famous Nazi doctor, is hiding out in Brazil. That's hence the Boys from Brazil. He goes and hunts this guy down and like tracks down these children of Hitler, and there's a name for them, right? But that was a big thing back in the 70s or whatever. That was like people, it's just a crazy conspiracy. Well, I don't know about that.
No, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that talk about, how the ruling class right now, they're from the World Economic, there's an organization within the World Economic Forum that's called like the Future Leaders or something like that. And if you look at the members or graduating, class members, it's it's like the who's who. It's Macron, it's Trudeau, it's just all these people.
Sure.
And there is a theory that a lot of these people have, like you were just describing, very similar backgrounds. They have kind of unclear family relationships and family structure. They move around a lot. Their parents seem to work for the government or be professors at universities that are grant funded, by the federal government. There's just a lot of unclear details about a lot of their lives. I mean, look at Macron. Look at that.
Yeah, the dream has been to build the perfect man, the Ubermensch. That's what I can't think of Nietzsche and Hitler, and that's all those guys wanted to build at the end of the day. And you wouldn't put it past these people. Think about the gal, the great murderess who started Planned Parenthood, right? At the one extreme, she wanted to get rid of the human weeds, if you will. But the other extreme of that is you want to like have this perfect, person, and whatever that would look like from a genetics standpoint.
Yeah.
They would. Yeah, Margaret Sanger. They'd be all in on that. So, and then those people would tell everybody else how to live. They'd be the ruling elite that would tell everybody else how to live.
Absolutely.
Which is essentially what the World Economic Forum is about. And I think that's who's leading this whole thing in Europe and Canada. And you look at Canada, they are destroying. What's happening to California is California and Canada are like similar kind of a thing, just destroying the place. But anyway, you might be, and I had a debate with a relative of mine about 40 years ago. So this relative of mine had grown up through the leftist university system in California, right? I think I was the first conservative she'd ever had a debate with. Literally, my wife sat there and enjoyed the fireworks. But I said to her, and this is back in like the mid '80s, I said the United States went away, the world would be a giant hellhole. Tell me how I'm wrong. Couldn't answer it.
Changed my mind. Yeah.
Changed my mind. If the United States goes away, the world is a cesspool hellhole overnight.
Yeah. It's a good guy.
And that hasn't changed.
Okay, so let's talk about some good news.
Good news. Give it to me.
Okay. The good news is Beyond Meat is bankrupt.
That's right. I caught that. People don't like bugs.
Yes, sirloin is in, and soy, products are out. But I thought that was really funny because when I'm healthy, right? I'm always reading the labels and concerned about what's going in my body, and so like when I first thought about it, I was like, I'll eat tofu. I think like maybe that's okay, and then of course I started reading about all the bad stuff that that goes into tofu and how it like ruins it. It's high in estrogen, so you don't ever want anybody of the male persuasion to eat tofu because it's and so I stopped doing that, but then it was like, all right, well maybe there's some healthy alternatives, but I just think it's hilarious. People are getting back to what's real. We want real men. We want real meat.
100%. And here's the thing. They always try to shove stuff down your throat. No pun intended, of course. If you want to eat some crickets or whatever, we don't have a problem with that. If you want to like munch on some slimy stuff, that's like cool. What do the French eat? The nasty little things, the snails or whatever.
Oh
I
yeah,
tried snails. It's like it didn't work for me. But I mean, if you like some snails, throw some butter on it. Go for it, right? But
sure.
don't force the rest of us to eat the stuff. That's all we're saying.
That's
But,
right.
but
Yeah,
they always want to force you to do it.
yeah, they do. Well, they because it makes you feel better. Makes
Right.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're morally superior to you, of course. Only they care about the planet.
Of course they are. It's funny. I was visiting a friend last week, and she was laughing that she lives on a street. She's one of, I think there's probably 25 houses on this street, and there
Mhm,
are three conservatives who live on the street, and the
mhm,
rest of them are they're kind of like angry, agitated, activated progressives. And so, like, she can't, they'll complain about absolutely everything that she's doing. And, they're real quick to, like, put those wacky signs in their yards. And one of the neighbors at the bottom of the hill had just a whole hillside full of wacky signs. And one day, all the signs disappeared. And so she put a bunch more signs out, and the signs disappeared again. And next thing you know, she's got a sign in her yard that says, "Quit taking all my signs."
That's awesome. You see, it used to be that only happened to conservatives.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
people are
think
waking up.
like it was just like a bunch of like high school kids,
Yeah.
thought it was hilarious. They probably fly a Trump flag, right? Like they're not stupid, and and they just thought this is going to be so funny. And for her to put up a sign, like admitting that she had been totally robbed, of signaling, messaging. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's the point.
It's
We
like
just
a sign on your back that says "kick me." It's like everybody's chubby.
the thing about leftists is they can't leave you alone. You just want to go to the ball game, right? And they turn that into a political thing. You want to go to the movie, they turn that into political thing. You go to a play, it's like it's 24/7. And then they have the nerves to complain because some street preachers downtown on the corner or whatever, when they infiltrate with their religion, every single thing. And I think for the majority of people, it's just gotten over tired of it. You watch the Olympics and they got that nasty thing they had with what was it, the desecration of the Lord's Supper. You can't get any more outrageous than that. It's like over the top, out of their way to insult the entire like half the country. The other half of the country never does that to them. So
No,
yeah, so
oh,
I think it's kind of I'm glad to see him wake up. As one of the reasons why the what you might call the obnoxious side of Trump, I've actually enjoyed it because I've been so sick of watching nice guy president after nice guy candidate just getting decimated. When McCain ran against Obama, I was just screaming at the top of my lungs, "Why won't you run?" It was like he was afraid to say anything negative about the guy's policies. It was like he gave Obama it was like a downhill slide with grease to
well,
the
because he believed in
presidency.
a lot of that. That was the problem, is that he believed in a lot of that stuff.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
he's been in government for far too long. He had
Yeah.
no idea how his constituents were living, and he was just completely deluded of
Yeah.
his
But
values. The Republican,
war hero, I appreciate that, right? But we ran think about this. It was weenie after weenie. Dole, Bush, McCain. It's like you just like another weenie. So when Trump came
well,
along, I
every,
was like, and I was at first, like I said, I didn't vote for Trump because of Trump. I voted Trump because I knew what Hillary was. I didn't know anything about Trump. I never watched those TV shows. I just knew he was okay. He's probably wacky, but you know what? He can't be worse than her. And that was the reason I voted for him. It had nothing to do with Trump. And after that, of course, I mean, based on his policies or whatever, right? But yeah, we've run nothing but wimps and wussies until now. So I'm glad we got a Theodore Roosevelt, who carries, he doesn't even walk softly. He just carried a big stick. He walks loudly and
And
carries a big
not
stick.
whacking the walls on either side with it.
I'm sure somewhere Theodore Roosevelt's like, yeah. I
Uh,
think I like this style. Oh my goodness.
so funny. So, all right. So, what should we talk about next week? Do we leave anything on the table?
Boy, let me take a quick look. See, that's why I love working with you because it's like so easy. I don't even have to work. So I got a bunch of stuff. We could probably save it all for next week because we're down to the last
Yeah.
3 minutes. But
Yeah.
this vaccine trust is low. We can talk about that next week because that I think is another huge needle raiser. People
Yeah.
are finally like saying, "I don't want none of that juice."
I
And
love it.
and again, I heard what was oh, it was just I got to mention this one thing. A friend of mine was saying, I heard this today. It was like an 8-year-old, I think it was, with it was some crazy disease you don't get when you're 8. An 8-year-old had a stroke, third grader. Now I didn't know the person, but a friend of mine knew this person, this kid. Third graders run around with strokes, and and nobody at the table would speculate on what the obvious reason for this has to be. I just have to bite my tongue because I don't want to get into any trouble, right?
Well, and here's the thing, Don. If this was an adult, you might feel emboldened to say something. This is somebody's child. Some brainwashed or afraid parent did
Yep.
this. We all know them.
Yeah,
We all know them. And
absolutely.
now they're realizing I did this to my kid.
But see, that's the thing. And I'm not sure because, on the one hand, yes, I think the ones who have the capacity to be honest with themselves are at that. And if you are, I can't imagine how crushed you would be. Then you have the ones who are going to refuse to admit that because I can't be wrong because of that narcissism thing. Because the medical profession is not going to fess up to that. They're lying to these people still. And I've had a couple of cases in my personal life with adults who were perfectly healthy, who had all these cardiovascular things happen, and they still can't get their arms around the fact that this was done to them.
It's too hard. It's like being a victim of a crime.
They were.
Of course, but to think that, like, it's easy to point at a bad guy and say that happened to me, and it's not a reflection of, it's almost like it's like such a violation of trust. It's almost like being abused by a family member.
Oh, in some ways, maybe worse. The entire institution did this to you. Like, who would you, if you were going to go out and get revenge, who would you get? Would you get the doctor? Would you get the hospital system? Would you get the medical insurance? I mean, it's like, where would it stop?
Yeah. Well, speaking of stop, we got to go. It's 7 o'clock.
That's right.
Big conversation, and yeah. We could definitely keep talking about it. I love what our is doing with the revising the whole charter of ASIP.
Yes.
He can keep things on track, and we'll see how things roll out over the next, because of course they're going to challenge that too. So
Yeah. So we'll wrap on that. Hey, sports fans, you guys are wonderful. It's Wonderful Wednesday. That was the fastest 59 minutes in sports. Closing thoughts, my friend.
Oh my gosh. I'm just glad that it was supposed to rain like crazy here in San Diego, so I kind of thought that I was going to be able to relate to you a little bit, being in such a rainy place. I think it dripped and spitted a little bit, and of course, everybody was like off the road, like, I can't drive in this. I can, so.
Oh no,
That's all we got. There's supposed to be some typhoon swirling around in the Pacific somewhere, but in San Diego, it's clear and sunny once again.
Well, I gotta laugh and tell you this. We had like giant hailstones for like an hour at lunchtime. I looked out the window like, wow. But like a couple of days ago, it was 75. So in April, we don't know what we're gonna get. So, all right, my friend.
Kind of like this. We don't know what's gonna happen next Wednesday, but we're gonna be back.
I'll be back. Good night, everybody. It's great to see you.
Okay.